Greetings, Summoners. Cosmic here, and welcome back to your weekly update for Battle Spirits Saga. I do apologize for last week not having a video. If you saw on the community page, I was out for the One Piece card game launch because my personal local game store that I play at, they are new to Bandai Games, so it's their first time getting up to date with the BTCG Plus system, which is a bit of a mess if you're in the store and seeing it for the first time, but once you get used to it, it's fine. And they just really needed an extra hand, so I was off doing demos and all that stuff. So no update last week, but that gives us plenty to talk about this week with all the updates that had happened. So right up the bat, I want to talk about the lore update that we got. And no, I won't read through this, so feel free to pause the video, read through it. I put it out on socials and everywhere else, so you might have seen this already. But it was actually on OPTCG's website for the product information. One of the Discord members found it, and it's really interesting. And I guess it's also nice that it confirms that we're going to be getting blue and green. Yes, it's something that we just kind of expected because they would not bring it over. But it's nice to see it referenced here, and then also nice to see that they have the different archetypes or, tribes, if you will, within the different realms that are listed here as well. Now, the important thing to note here is that this also does confirm that this is not Battle Spirits. It's Battle Spirits Saga, and while yes, the gameplay is going to remain largely the same, and if you're a fan of how Battle Spirits plays, you don't care, right? That's if you're not a lore buff, it's whatever. It's still going to be the game that you know and love today. However, with Saga being an important part of it, it really is going to be this reimagination or new lore cycle compared to what they have today in Battle Spirits. So what's going to be really interesting is we have this, first chapter of this lore, and is this something that we're going to get with every booster going forward? Is it something that we might eventually see an anime adaptation, even if it's like those short commercial like films that they have that at least show off some of the realms and what have you? That'd be really cool, but we don't know quite where this is going to go. I would expect that if Battle Spirits Saga does very well, Bandai and all their glorious power and animation studios and all that stuff that they have, I could very well see an anime, but I wouldn't expect it anytime, within the first year, probably even longer than that. So I would expect that we're going to get these little lore updates along the way. And it's very interesting. A card in particular, Nova, that we're going to talk about later, is a pretty noteworthy change to its Battle Spirits counterpart. So already we're seeing a divide of if you have a favorite character or spirit, they're like, man, I really love them in Battle Spirits. I hope they come over for Saga. No, just give up on that hope. I don't want to, burst your bubble or throw away expectations or what have you, but it's very clear that we're going to have a departure from some of those characters that you love or spirits that you love, and they might get effect changes. They might get new artwork, which new artwork is a win for everybody, but don't expect it to be kind of that one-to-one relationship that they had in Battle Spirits. Now, that said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see, between like the contract saga and things of that nature, if we see some of those spirits or characters coming back and still playing a big role as they do in whatever the new story is going to be. But, don't expect that one-to-one relationship, which has been made very clear by this lore update we got. So again, I am technically someone who's newer to Battle Spirits. I am myself coming in with the August update, but I'm really excited to see what this means for Saga and how they're going to treat it, because it does open up this opportunity for them to, maybe there's a certain character or part of the lore that they really didn't get to experience or elaborate on as much as they like, and they really want to shine the light on some different parts of the story over the different sagas or years or what have you. So I think this is a great opportunity for Saga to really build off of what Battle Spirits has kind of laid out over the last almost 15 years and really turn it into something more unique for a Western or global audience in this case. And, it'd be really great, again, if we get an anime, but it's kind of up in the air if we will ever see something like that. But, fingers crossed is all I can say for that one. So, again, go ahead and feel free to pause the video, what have you, read through this. But, again, I'll share it on socials and all that stuff. And hopefully with Set 2, we will get an update, but we will wait and see. The other really interesting part, though, if you were at Dragon Ball Super Nationals, or, again, thank you to my contact who was able to send this to me. The picture in the middle, though, is from, I think it's DBS X, if I remember correctly, their Twitter tag. They shared this photo on Twitter, and it was just the best one that shows, like, the whole field and kind of, like, how players sat down and all that stuff. So I wanted to borrow their photo. And then on the just the right of that is from my contact, where it showed a very nice comparison of the cores, the soul core, and then, you know, a friendly mint, just for size reference, as it were. So we're finally getting a little bit better of an idea of how big that these cores are going to be. And once again, when I get my kits in January and I get the demo kits and we get these cores in person, I'll do my like lineup shot, like, you know, mini D6, Japanese core, Japanese soul core, Western soul core, and then a normal D6. I think I just did that in order, right? Just so you can see the exact size. But overall, again, as someone who I always make the joke like boomer hands, one of the things that I did, I don't want to say struggle with, because it's not that difficult. It's just things I had to get accustomed to as playing. Moving in cores was a bit difficult for someone who, you know, I worked in a tire shop for years, so my hands just aren't as good as they used to. So I am very, very excited that these are going to be slightly bigger, because as I imagine, after I'm playing this for hours, you know, I'm making this like constant, you know, pinching or shuffling motion with my hands. They would get very tired. Like I personally cannot play Pokemon anymore in a bigger events, because I went to a GP. And just after all the shuffling and all the hand and wrist movements, I was done. Like I was actually in pain. I had to put on a brace, and it just wasn't good. So that is a very me problem, and I want to make sure that that's identified as, this is just a me that glad that things are changing. You might feel a little bit differently, but it's something that I think is going to be good overall. I am a little bit worried about how green comes on board with how big the cores might be and what have you, but later problem for later us. So really excited that Bandai was able to get this out to Dragon Ball Super Nationals. I'm hoping this means that Dragon Ball Super creators will be covering it and talking about it in the following weeks or months, or maybe they're waiting to get demo kits. But truthfully, the couple of people that I was able to personally connect with, they are very excited. Once they actually sat down and played the game and realized that, you know, it doesn't have any of that RNG nonsense. It's very easy to pick up, but also has crazy depth once you start to understand how the cores move around. And I think that's truly the biggest challenge that Battle Spirits Saga has. If you can get people just to sit down and demo the game and talk through it from someone who knows about Battle Spirits and knows about how these different colors and decks will interact with one another, it's a very easy sell, if I'm being quite honest. I remember, and I say this a lot in the Discord, and probably good to get out on video. Again, for those that don't know, I was very much involved with Force of Will's launch back in the States 7 years ago or whatever it's been now. And I did a lot for that game, did a lot of demos, did a lot of traveling, and I see all those similar success opportunities that Force of Will had and capitalized on. And Bandai is just doing everything better and already has a better setup because they're in so many stores already across, as I say, across the US, but I guess across the globe, you know, more accurately here. So there is quite literally no reason why Battle Spirits Saga as a game shouldn't see even more success than Force of Will did when it came out. And mind you, Force of Will was like number 4 in sales in the States when it came out for the Grim Cluster, and I forget what the other one is off the top of my head that followed those two sets. It did very, very well. So I'm expecting to see a lot of that with Battle Spirits Saga. So hopefully in January, we're going to get some demo kits. I'm going to work with my store to see how many that we can just like give away to other friends and other contacts that I know, so that they can then demo the game to their friends and their community. And if you haven't had the chance to stop by the Discord already, there's a link in the comments, or excuse me, in the description, that'll have a link to the Discord. And then in there's a link to the demo deck. So if you just want a print and play and you don't mind waiting, and maybe you use like mini D6s for the cores or something, we as a community have that for anybody else that wants to try the demo decks. However, I do understand the benefit of having Bandai official product, right, for lack of a better word, or materials, because that gives you much better sense of, okay, how's the card stock? How is the foiling? And again, the disclaimer I had to add here is clearly that foiling that's pictured here is not final. If you looked at some of these images that I shared within the Discord, it was clearly a test print because you could see like the foil line breaks in them. So I'm pretty meh about that particular foiling that's pictured here on the Imperial Thunder Dragon Siege Worm, but I think that some of the other test foils that we've seen have been a lot better. So I'm curious to see where those are going to end up. So, you know, at the time of recording this, we're just a couple weeks into, I guess, just over a week into December. So only a few more weeks until hopefully we get the January news. We talk about the demo decks. We talk about what's in those promo packs, right? Is it going to be like One Piece where there's 5 different card types, it's 1 per pack, and then everybody's going to want a bunch of those promo packs? Or is it just going to be like, hey, here's a Siege Worm in a pack, right? And it's just a 1-to-1 thing, like the participation Luffy from One Piece, right? So we'll see what that ends up at, and if we can, we're going to do a giveaway with those promo packs for those that were unable to get their stores on board or one of their other nearby stores on board. So hopefully look forward to that. But the demo kits are huge. I think it's a very good sign. Again, lots of people have been excited once they finally got to sit down and try the game, and everyone was super positive. So again, I'm just super pumped to get people to try this game. And again, all the demos that I've done locally, people are very excited. And this is just the red demo deck, which truthfully, if you're someone who wants more like interaction and you want more of like the, I guess without getting too much into it, like purple and white, I think are going to be the two parts of the color identities that really help get people excited, because those really play well into what makes Battle Spirits Saga unique and what really sells the game, other than, say, red just going unga bunga. Now, yes, there is more to red than that, but at least with the demo decks and what we've seen so far, it's really just your typical red deck wins, to use the overall card game terminology, and doesn't really make it feel that much different as a game or as a identity compared to white or purple. And I guess green as well, because they have ramp. Like, those are the three colors, in my opinion, that really sell Battle Spirits Saga and sells the most unique and most interesting point of this game. So hopefully demo decks soon. I'm really looking forward to it. We just kind of have to wait and see when we get the more update from the Twitter account. Now, again, I talked about what makes these cards so great and what makes the game so great. And I'm so excited because we finally have, and again, before I get into that, small disclaimer, this is based off of a test print reveal, but because it's a unique effect that we haven't seen before, and because it does mirror what they've done for Dark Grail in the past, we've talked about that in a different video, there's a very good chance that this is a real card. Obviously, we don't know the cost reduction symbol. The 5 is probably a placeholder, but the text and the power is probably locked in. And because we know that this is on the cover of the starter deck, it is very likely going to be the second X-Rare. We've already seen the Elk, remind you, which is clearly the boss monster of what we'd expect in the white deck. And this effect is just so perfect and just beautiful in what it does for the white deck. I would be mind blown if this is not very, very close to the final. Like, it might be, 3 cores for level 2, whatever, right? There might be small changes like that, but overall, from the effect and what we see here from Dualgun Mechlord, it's probably pretty locked in. So I ranted and raved about all those things, but what does white do? So as a reminder, white as a color identity is going to be more your blocker focused and more of your control style of deck in a card game. So we saw the Elk as a big finisher. If you don't take damage, you get to burn a life from your opponent on your turn. So like, that's a very strong effect, but then it says, okay, well, how do we survive that long? How do we get to 7 and put this unit on the board and have blockers to make sure we don't die so we can trigger that life effect? And do we have enough cores to use magic or other things to either, prevent your opponent from attacking or freezing one of their units or whatever it might be, right? Some kind of interaction. So this is very exciting because it does quite a few things. So the when destroyed, place a core from your void into your trash. So right away, that's going to help you accelerate your game plan and get quicker or more quickly to that 7 drop, which is going to then, stick on the board. It's a pretty good threat itself, and then lets you build up the board beyond that. So already, I love this, and I know there's been some kind of talks already. It's like, oh man, we get one of our really cool mechas. Look at this, a beautiful artwork, and that's the only effect that he's going to get. And then the level 2 and 3 we'll talk about in a moment. But you have to remember, Battle Spirits Saga as a game isn't like, Digimon, or even as we've seen some parts with One Piece, that it's different and your colors are going to be carried throughout multiple sets. So this effect is actually going to be good for white, and I very strongly believe, or wouldn't be surprised if Dualgun Mechlord actually sees play for multiple sets, just because of how good this first and second effect is. So if you wanted to stick around, that's great. The Elk, for example, though, because it's going to be your boss monster, for lack of a better word, there is a very likely chance that it's either going to get power crept or something new and fancier and shinier comes out, or there's just a different effect that you want to go for in your deck because you don't want to have to rely on the life burn rate. The Elk is one of those things where it's like a higher card and more niche, where it's not going to be in every single white deck going forward. Maybe it is. Again, we have to see what it would be in set 2. But I think that this Dualgun Mechlord is in a very, very solid spot for what he wants to do. Again, that's just the first ability. And then the second ability, which is really, it might not make sense until you like sit down and physically play the game, which is kind of like one of those like downsides. Like, I can't really sell you on this or really stress the importance until you play the game and understand how core placement works and understand how different decks want to play out with different synergies. But at level 2 and level 3, if there's a soul core on the spirit, so again, we've already seen multiple cards that are so important on the soul core, and this one just really echoes that feeling again. It can block all of your opponent's spirits with 2 cores or fewer while exhausted. So you get to attack. You get to either threaten a life or hopefully remove one of their attackers, whatever you want to do with this in white. And again, usually chipping a life or 2 early on is okay. But then it just gets to stay rested and block. So 2 cores or fewer. So that means 3 cores if your opponent wants to get around this. And if you think about red, if you think about yellow, and while we don't have the spoilers yet for yellow, we do know that we are getting the 2 cost or less spam side of it. Those are traditionally decks that want to go wide. You want to have multiple spirits on the board to make your things cheaper and also get multiple attacks in a turn. And one of the things that we've seen from the tutorial that a lot of people complained about is like, oh, he just summoned 4 guys out of nowhere. They'd all just attack because everything has haste. And then my opponent just died. With Dualgun Mechlord in the field, you can't do that. He is just going to sit there as a 4K, those are all like 1K units, I think, and just shut down your opponent's board. Now, yes, that means that the red opponent is likely then going to build up into like some of their 6, 7, or 8 costs, and then just try to attack from a different angle. But I think this does a really great job at once this is in the board. It's not like it's going to, your opponent can't play cards, right? They can still, put spirits on the field, work towards their cost reduction, think about the bigger units they want to play, or maybe they have to take a turn off to play a magic to burn this card. It really just has such a fundamental impact on the game that can only be done through Battle Spirits Saga. And yes, we do see some kind of comparison to this, to the Dawn system in One Piece card game. But if I can just be a little bit blunt about it, the more I play One Piece, it just feels like a bad core system. Like, I get that they were trying to maybe not use the cores, or maybe they want to have the Dawn be more physical where it can just go in and out of an area. But the more and more I play One Piece, it really just feels like, okay, they try to do a different version of the core system. And in my honest opinion, it just doesn't work. I think the Dawn system is good because it does allow you to like power up your units and do other things with it. But from a 1-to-1 system, it just feels like a watered down version of the cores and how they work in Battle Spirits, well, Battle Spirits and Battle Spirits Saga. So I will say, if you like the Dawn system from One Piece, you're going to love Saga. It's just better. Like, it's just, and I realize this is impossible to not come off as biased from me, but I really do try to approach every card game I play with an open mind, and we're going to be talking about Shadowverse Evolve later. But there are just certain mechanics where you can see it's clearly supposed to be a 1-to-1 or very similar, and it's just executed better in one game over the other. And that's simply all I want to try to say. So again, final notes, this is just a mock-up that I did. This should be the other X rare in the starter. But again, this one card, once you sit down and play Battle Spirits Saga, you get a demo, and then you come back and look at this card, this should get you excited to play, especially if you're someone who enjoys the more control or like grindy style of games. This single card should be all it takes to sell you on Battle Spirits Saga once you understand how important the cores are. So again, once I saw this, and once, thankfully the members of the Discord confirmed that it was a unique effect and something we haven't seen before, this is everything I could have wanted, and I think is going to do an amazing job with it being in the starter deck. So again, very low entry point for players, very low price point rather. It's going to be so good to help really show what makes this game so special and so different than everything else out there, and why, again, not clickbait, it's my favorite trading card game in the last 10 years. So moving on from that, we did get a couple more test prints, and I'm going to go through these a bit quicker just because we don't have a lot of information on this otherwise. But the one really, really important thing to note here from the Infernal King Cursed Dragon is that BSS logo, or Battle Spirits Saga logo, stamped in the background. So this is one thing I've talked about in a previous video, and it was just missing. I love the way that they do X and XX rares in Battle Spirits because it's an entire extra layer of foiling, right? It's a process that they have to do that really shows that they care because it's extra work and extra cost on their end, basically, but it really does make the higher end cards pop. And this is more, it's not what I would expect on our, what are they called, special rares in our version of the game, but instead in the secret rares in Japan, they have these like really awesome backgrounds where they have like the battle spirits stamped in. So I'm hoping that this is a sign that we get something similar in the global version. But at the very least, I'm just happy to see them testing this out and showing off that, hey, they are considering this for future print runs. So the artwork is just gorgeous. You can see it has multiple layers of foiling, unlike the sawdust foiling that One Piece has. And maybe I'll include I think I put it on Twitter, I'm pretty sure. But the foiling in the full arts of One Piece, it has like this like gritty, grainy texture in the background, which I'm not in love with. It does have the one layer of texture on it, which helps. But it's not the quality of Battle Spirits foiling that I would expect and hope to see from Bandai in their other games. I've been very vocal about this in Digimon. I'm going to continue to be very vocal about it in One Piece. And if it doesn't reach my standards or come up to my standards in Battle Spirits Saga, I'm going to complain about it in Battle Spirits Saga. I know what Bandai is capable of, and I get it's probably a cost thing. It's probably a time thing in the printing cycle and all that. But if you're going like the manga rarity Shanks, like it's such a miss. It is such a miss for a high rarity collectible card. So I'm hoping, I think Ace is already confirmed for set 2, so that doesn't matter. I'm really hoping Bandai by set 3, set 4, you figure it out with One Piece and fix up some of the layering techniques because the game deserves it. And obviously the game's going to do well, so I really hope we see that in the near future. And Battle Spirits Saga, you're building off the Battle Spirits base. We know how good your foils can be. Please let them be good. Like the Curse Dragon here looks great. It's clearly 2 different layers of foil texturing, which you can see on the card, and then also has an additional layer of the Battle Spirits Saga logo, and then also the purple outline, which we do see. We do see that like the color font outline in One Piece, which looks gorgeous, by the way. So that's the one thing they've done very, very well. Like the full art box toppers, just so good, so good. Like it's a bit frustrating that they did the box toppers so incredibly well. Even yes, you can make the argument that there's like zoomed in artwork, but the layout of them and the coloring, like a detail that they've added, it's so good. So I'm really hoping that this is a good sign for Battle Spirits Saga in the future. And then the next one, which was, it's crazy. So SUPERNOVA is supposed to be our like key mascot of set 1, like the most important spirit. Like Tunic in Flesh and Blood, like Charizard in Pokemon, like Greymon, I guess, I don't know Digimon that well. I'm trying to think of other examples. Like SUPERNOVA Dragon Siege Worm is like our biggest mascot, biggest deal of set 1. And it was spoiled in a test print by Simply Unlucky. Like, this just feels so backwards to me. But what's interesting, if you go back to that lore sample that we had, and if you look at this card, I'm not going to get too much into it because it's, it is a test print, technically, subject not final, blah, 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 blah. But it's so crazy to me that the lore confirms what's on this card, that it should be the final effect. And why do we get such an important like random spoiler in a YouTube short? Bandai, please. Like, I get it. The artwork is going to change. The cost is going to change. There's hopefully going to be better, formatting of the font and all that stuff. But, like, maybe we should have just assumed that he's going to have a similar effect to the Battle Spirits counterpart. But it was one of those things that just, like, completely caught me off guard and was like, all right, I guess we're getting this card revealed this way. So I really look forward to what the final version is going to be. But we basically have confirmed that there's going to be an additional cost to his effect to gain the 5 life. You have to banish the Soul Core. And the one thing I did want to mention here is that that's such a super important thing. So you have to banish the soul core to your void, but then you remember like, oh, but you get a core from the void every turn. That's not a big deal. No, you get a core, not a soul core. So once you use this effect, your soul core is gone for the rest of the game. And remember, Red has quite a few strong effects that you want the soul core. And truthfully, this is, part balancing, part really trying to sell the idea of like, when do I use my soul core, during the battle? And it really helps that kind of, give and take that you have with the soul core and having all those decision points that you have. Like, right, your magic gets weaker if you don't have access to it. I call him Ducky Dino. I apologize. I forget his name. You don't get to draw off him anymore. And that's just the 2 spoilers that we've seen. And there's going to be a lot more soul core based effects. that we have within, obviously, the starter decks alone, but also in set 1. So that said, this is going to be the top-end finisher for the red deck. So healing up to 5 life on top of having just an absolute unit of a boss monster is probably going to end the game, so you don't care about losing the Soul Core. However, if your opponent is able to stabilize, if they have some type of room removal or interaction for Supernova, it's going to feel really bad. And purple, we already know, has just a straight up on attack delete your dude. So the red versus purple matchup is going to be pretty interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, if you need the heal, if like you're going to die on the next turn, you probably take the 4 heal anyways, or max of 4 heal anyways, and you're just like, whatever, kill my dude. If you got it sort of thing. But I really do love how much emphasis and otherwise importance they're putting on the Soul Core and all the different ways that you can spend it or utilize it and how unique it is compared to, say, the other cores. This is one of the areas I've been very adamant about, that on top of the printing issues, the translation issues, right? Early Battle Spirits just didn't feel special. And I understand why that the early, like, was it 2008 version didn't do well, because it is a night and day difference that you're getting between early Battle Spirits and where we're coming in at with Battle Spirits Saga. So again, I would strongly encourage you, if you think you've played Battle Spirits in the past, unless you're keeping up with current Japan meta and those cards effects and whatnot, please try Saga again when it comes out, because it is a night and day difference, and it's a totally new game. I mean, obviously we have, increased deck sizes, 4-ofs instead of 3-ofs, all that stuff. But no, it's really going to feel like a new and special game because we have Burst, because we have Soul Core, because we're getting these unbanished effects. It just adds so much to the game that was lacking back in 2008 and 2009 that I really strongly feel like this is going to be a step up for what we would come to expect from like a new game launch. Now, I realize if you're a Battle Spirits vet, a lot of this is going to feel like, oh, it's just a watered down version. It's a simplified version. We don't have these crazy effects. Yeah, that's a good thing. You have to remember that technically Battle Spirits players are not the target audience for Battle Spirits Saga. You want new players coming into your game because there will be significantly more players that then buy into the product than, say, those who are around for 2008 and 2009 release of Battle Spirits. So obviously, if you're a Battle Spirits vet, that's not meant to be like a slight or anything against you. Obviously, please enjoy the game, try it out, all that stuff. But we have to think about what does the wider market look like, and it's going to be people who don't know what a core is. They're going to sit down and be like, ooh, what is this piece of forbidden candy, right? No, please don't eat the cores. But they're not going to have that same experience that you, or I guess most people probably watching this video this early into the release cycle, or pre-release cycle, I should say, are going to have with the game. So please be patient, be kind, and take the time to demo the game to new players, because I do very strongly, again, feel that this game has everything in place for it to be a success in the Western market, because Bandai has clearly learned from their mistakes and is doing a lot of good things for this game going forward. And then the last thing that I have to talk about, because I don't want to do a separate video on it, and I feel like it's just something that needs to be said at some point. So yeah, Shadowverse Evolve got revealed to actually have an English version launching in 2023. And I am horribly mixed on how I feel about it. For those that don't know, or maybe you saw in the demo game video, I have a Lucifer mat. Like, I bought the Japanese launch bundle because I love Shadowverse. I am very excited about the idea of an English version coming over, but there are a few cautionary points that I have that really make me second guess if I'm ever going to one, add videos to the channel, obviously, is one part of it. But two, I might not buy into this as much as I thought I was going to buy into it. And a couple reasons for that. So one, yes, while Cygames is the leader in terms of development and balancing and all that stuff, it does ultimately come back to Bushiroad to run events in the Western market. So if you think about Tier Days, if you think about how some tournaments have gone recently, Bushiroad doesn't exactly have a lot of good PR behind them right now. And I am very worried about what this means for Shadowverse Evolve, because yes, you could say, oh yay, Cygames is behind it, all that good. Bushiroad's logo is still on there. As someone who's been through Dragoborn, Luck and Logic, Future Card Buddy Fight, it didn't quite go that well for us. And yes, Future Card Buddy Fight did last the longest out of all those, but I think it still leaves a bit to be desired on how Bushiroad handled the more organizational aspect of it for the Western launch. Now, the other part of that, let's give Bushiroad a pass. Let's assume everything is fine. Cygames kind of broke the game in their collab set. So it is so bad. And I guess the one thing I should add here really quick before I get into that is, yes, Shadowverse Evolved did have 1,000 player events in Japan. It was doing very, very well. Locals were booming. Everything was great. And then they introduced a tier 0, and I don't say that lightly. I mean that literally. You can go do the research and at Twitter and what have you to ask around. They introduced a tier 0 collab set that really kind of killed the game at the local level. And we have an event in either late December or early January, I forget. There's an event coming up soon, and I'm wondering how hard attendance is going to get hit because there is supposed to be a banned and restricted update next week to try to fix this very awful error that they had, but we have to wait and see what they actually do, if it's going to fix it, and if Dragoncraft is going to kind of get hit. So it's hard. I'm obviously, it's Shadowverse. I've spent literally thousands of dollars on the digital client at this point. I've been playing on and off for years. I have Japanese Shadowverse Evolved product. I want to be excited for this game, but at the time of recording, until we get more information on how the English version is going to be handled, and until we see what that ban and restricted update looks like, it's quite difficult to recommend this, just knowing the history of Bushiroad, knowing that there is such a egregious error, right? And then how the balancing went with the collab set, that it does really give me pause and say, okay, I can forgive them once. The collab set maybe was pushed just to sell, what have you, but how is set 3 going to shake out? So yes, I did this launched back in April. I watched the meta quite a bit for set 1 and set 2. It was good. Obviously, like Dragoncraft was a little bit stronger and maybe needs a little bit of a balance tweak, what have you. But it was pretty good for a new game. And then the collab set came around, ruined everything, and then hopefully set 3 can kind of bring it back around in a good light. So I will be following this. This will probably be the only time that I mention it on the channel, just from a time perspective, from a we have to wait for more news perspective, a lot of things, a lot of factors here to consider. But if I can get local players interested, or people approach me and say, hey, I will supply the product, let's record some games, I'll probably do that. I enjoy supporting these games that might not have a lot of other content creators behind them, because it's so important just to have like meta discussions and gameplay videos out there so that players can enjoy them and see how these games evolve over time. So I'm really looking forward to that, but it is kind of a wait and see where things go. A little bit longer of an update this week. I do apologize, but taking last week off, there's a bit to talk about, and I really want to do the due diligence to kind of get through each one of these points, but I am super excited. So Battle Spirits Saga, a Twitter account, if you could please give us back Friday updates, I'd really appreciate it. Because we're kind of getting close to January, and those demo kits are hopefully going out early January, not late January, and I'm just very excited to share this game with more players. So with that, I hope you all have a great weekend. Stay hydrated, my friends, and look forward to another Battle Spirits Saga video next Friday for another weekly update. So until then, be kind, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.